Ghostwire Tokyo is one of the weirdest games I have played in a long time. I really love its Japanese setting and soundtrack, playing with the concept of death and what comes after life is an intriguing premise. But there are some ugly sides to the game I can't just ignore. Hello guys, welcome to a new Ace Eyes review. Today we're going to review Ghostwire Tokyo, the new PlayStation exclusive from Bethesda, a studio that's now owned by Microsoft. Pretty funny how things go in life. Let's take a deep dive in Ghostwire Tokyo. Most of the time, Ghostwire Tokyo looks really amazing. I love the lighting and the dense fog that paints a bleak picture in the world space. I love the world building. All the residents are gone and the only thing left behind in the streets are some clothing and personal belongings. Some of the attention to detail is amazing. I have never seen better raindrops on a glass surface as good as in this game. Too bad some of the character models don't get the same treatment, especially the cute dogs and cats that you can pet around the city. This is typical Japanese budget restraints. If you play any other Japanese games like Yakuza, you know exactly what I mean and what I'm talking about. The enemy design is pretty good as well. Even though it's not really a horror game, it keeps its creepy DNA that Tango Games is known for. You really are in an open world version of Tokyo and exploring every part of the city is really fun. All the small streets are full and packed with detail. You can think of something like the Yakuza games, which I mentioned earlier. There is a lot of detail in the world just itself, with all the lighting that you can see and billboards and water reflections. It's really something, and it's basically eye candy. I did have some nasty slowdowns and frame drops though during my 25-hour playthrough. No real bugs, but the optimization could have been done far better. You also have some weird camera acceleration settings that make no sense whatsoever. They only make the game feel more sluggish. I suggest that you tinker with the settings before you play. The soundtrack is really cool though, with some traditional Japanese tunes and scary environmental tracks that keep you on your toes. I really enjoyed the soundtrack for the game. Ghostwire Tokyo has some good gameplay systems that kept me enjoyed for the most part. Let's start with what's good. Even though the combat system can get pretty repetitive, it's a fine dance to survive the different enemies the game throws at you. Although it doesn't really matter which element that you use. You have your basic wind attacks that you can use, you have water and you have fire. Eternal weaving is such a cool power and satisfying to pull off. I did wish for more variety in the powers though. You only have your standard fire, wind and water spells, and they didn't really evolve to the basic forms. You can basically just put skill points into one more shot, one more elemental shot, like one more water shot that you can do, or a fire shot, and there isn't really that much variety, and that's a little bit disappointing. What I am a little bit more negative on though is the open world objective structure. You will collect souls, cleanse story gates and help spirits out, all without much any change whatsoever. It's constantly this cycle of collecting souls, cleansing story gates and helping out spirits, and you do this over and over again to the point that it's pretty redundant, and that's really sad because I really love this setting and that's what kept me basically playing the game. This makes for a really repetitive gameplay loop that isn't really broken up too much, which is a shame. I also would have liked to see more innovative skill upgrades than just timers being longer or quicker cooldowns. Most of the skills that you can unlock are basically one more shot of a elemental damage, or you can get to the core of the enemy a little bit longer, or the core is a little bit longer visible. And these time upgrades aren't fun, and it's a shame because the concept of the combat system is really good and it is really flashy, but it isn't none of it has any depth whatsoever. However, I do like the Tengu grappling system. It's not as free as the grapple hook in Halo Infinite, for example, but it does give more room for vertical exploration that I did enjoy. And most of the time, the open world is filled with stuff to collect, Japanese artifacts that are really interesting to see and learn about. So the vertical exploration is pretty fun. Overall, I am a bit mixed on the gameplay systems in Ghostwire Tokyo. I do think there is fun to be had, but it isn't anything innovative and it doesn't really try to invent the wheel whatsoever. So don't go expect the next gameplay feature-rich game. You will find fun, but that's about it.
ちょっと大丈夫ですか？
動かない方がいいって。今救急車呼んでるから。
The story in Ghostwire Tokyo is pretty interesting. It deals with the concept of life and death and what to find in the afterlife. The story itself is okay, but it's not really that thought-provoking in any way. I do like the dynamic between the two main characters, Akito and Keikei. The banter between the two is what kept me invested in this story for most of the time. Both were really interesting and they had their own struggles to deal with, and that was one of the most compelling parts of the game. However, there is no real character development between the two after halfway midpoint of the game, which left me a bit disappointed. Also, the side characters aren't really fleshed out either. I still don't know some of the fates of certain characters that you will meet in the game. You have this Ed character, you will never see him, and you don't even really know him. There might be more information about him in some collectibles, maybe, but I wasn't really bothered by looking at it, and the game doesn't really try to tell you his story or who he is, which is pretty disappointing as well. What I did enjoy, though, are the side quests and the collectibles. They all learn you something cool about Japanese history and culture, which is always really interesting to me. And I learned stuff that I didn't know about. What are the Torii gates, for instance? And you have all these different yokai demons, and they all have their own really cool backstory that they explain in the side quests. This is one of the strongest points of Ghostwire Tokyo, so if you are interested in Japanese culture, you will still really enjoy this game. At the end of the day, I do like Ghostwire Tokyo, but it's not a game everyone is going to enjoy. The combat system is flashy and the exploration is fun, but the game is held back by its repetitive open-world objective design and the lacking side characters that keep the game from any greatness to achieve. If you are intrigued in the game, then I suggest you wait for a sale to dive in. If you love Japanese setting games, you will still find really some enjoyable parts about it, and you will learn about the Japanese culture. So that is a plus. And it does tell a pretty good story, even though it has some missteps, but for the most part it's okay. Ghostwire Tokyo scores a 7.5 out of 10 with a scale score to 7. Well, did you guys enjoy this review, this Ace Ice review? Let us know in the comment section down below. Give us a like. Have you had the chance to try out Ghostwire Tokyo for yourself? Give us your opinion. You can follow us on our social medias and give our other channels a look. Get Rekt, our new gaming news channel, and my own personal channel, MrMaximum. Also visit the website aceice.com. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.